overcoming poverty, burning off stress, paying attention with ADHD, building a career, beating a painful genetic disorder. After 13 years of helping others do the same, fitness became a foundation for my life's greatest gift and challenge, becoming a father. My name's Alex Van Houten, and I believe that what I eat, how I move, and what habits I live by are the rock upon which I build my physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being. And whatever I do will rub off on my kids and my community. Welcome to Defining Dad Bod, where we work to untangle the messy knots of the health and fitness industry as if your children's lives depended on it. Because they do. This is where we decide to make our bodies stand for something bigger than ourselves. This is where we find practical wisdom to live by, one powerful conversation at a time. May the words spoken here inspire you to keep moving forward no matter where you are. Who knows who you could be if you could become 1% better every single day.
We can do the show thanks to the support of listeners just like you. For more information how you can become part of the inner circle, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle. That's definingdadbod.com/inner circle.
What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Super excited to have you today. Today we are talking to Dr. Bruce Cooper to finish up our interview series on Beyond Calories. Today's conversation is powerful because Bruce's specialty is in cellular biology. And if you're like most people, cellular biology wasn't that exciting when you went through it in school. You memorized the cell organelles. You had flashcards with things like endoplasmic reticulum on them. And it's very possible that if you're not a nerd like I am, you have not said the words adenosine triphosphate in 20 years. But don't worry, though we like to nerd out on this topic, this conversation brings the science to an accessible and practical level to help you understand how deeply your nutrition and lifestyle habits are affecting you. Additionally, there are some awesome gems in here that will help you to think differently about some of the things you're doing every day. If you find this episode valuable, I hope you share it with your friends and leave us a review on iTunes. And if you're looking to make some changes in your own exercise and nutrition habits right now, I have 2 more spots open for the fall, and you're very welcome to apply to one of those. You can find out more information at definingdadbod.com/trial. Now let's talk to Dr. Bruce Cooper, and I promise we'll make cellular biology fun, practical, and interesting. What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing awesome. I am super stoked about our conversation today. I get to hang out with a doctor of naturopathy, as they call it, Mr. Bruce Cooper. Bruce, how you doing today, brother?
I am doing well. Alex, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm kicking butt and taking names. Today has been pretty fun. I've gotten to have a great conversation. Just recently, we recorded our conversation with Lane Norton, the big calories debate showdown. So can't wait for that to come out. That was fun. And I'm excited to talk to you today about, man, we've got so much on the docket we could talk about. We're going to hit mitochondria. We're going to hit digestive health. You know, what do you call it? Your vice president of security, your dog might interrupt us in the background. We could end up talking about animal studies. Who knows, man? So I want to give everybody an opportunity to get to know you a little bit, though. So Bruce, tell us a little bit about your background, your superhero, the origin story. How did you get to be doing what you're doing now? Because you and I have a history. We've met in the past and gotten to work together pretty closely for a while. And yes, you have been doing some great things since we haven't seen each other in the professional sphere. So tell us about your story, man.
So it really started, I have to take it all the way back to high school when I really got interested in human biology and anatomy and physiology, and was heading down a path studying pre-physical therapy, worked 10 years in a physical therapy clinic, worked with a not a semi-pro, but a professional hockey, minor league professional hockey team for a while, became a paramedic, finally finished my degree in human biology, and I was dating myself in the early 90s from Texas Women's University, and While I was waiting to go into physical therapy school, I took a left turn into technology for a few years. Ups and downs in technology. Came back out of it, and it really, I loved it, but it wasn't my passion. And so I decided I wanted to get back to helping people. And that's when I turned to personal training. Again, my background was in human biology, so it was a nice move over. And then I really got interested in the nutrition side of things. And then through some things that went on with me early on in my career training and nutrition, it was a sinus infection, and I went through 3 rounds of antibiotics, and it didn't go away. And one of the trainers where I was working said, "Hey, go see my naturopath." I told my wife, and for the past 20-something years that she's been in alternative medicine and does it with her skincare business. So she was very excited. So I went in, did a few things with him. Oddly enough, he said, "Hey, take chicken out of your diet." Do you eat a lot of chicken? Yes. Take it out of your diet, like every other fitness professional, right? Lean chicken. And he gave me a few supplements and things to do. And within a week, sinus infection that had been there is gone. And it just opened my eyes up to a whole new world of alternative treatments to things that were going on. And so I've tried a few things, acupuncture, and I've used that, and chiropractic care, and just not your traditional MD medicine. Mm. And then I moved up the ranks at a company we were both at, and was a regional nutrition program coordinator. The only one that was in the nation that wasn't a registered dietitian. And then philosophically, I started learning a few other things, and we'll talk about a few of those today. And I moved off and went and found my platform. So I did a Doctor of Traditional Naturopathy program, finished that up, and started Cooper Health Solutions that following year.
Awesome. And since then, I know that you've gotten to help not only people in your own community and vicinity, but I know that you also do like online courses and stuff as well, or at least speaking engagements. So I'm really excited to get you on here and talk about a few things. One thing you talked to me about that really was a light switch for you, going from the traditional training and nutrition route, where you talk about things like insulin sensitivity or adrenal fatigue or, testosterone, and whether or not that's where it needs to be. And as you know, I'm quite fixated on the hormones around here. I like to use them as a platform for educating people. But one of the things I remember you telling me that I thought was pretty powerful was when you realized that adrenal fatigue, the quote unquote condition of adrenal fatigue, it struck you that it was weird that people were trying to unfatigue a hormonal system when all of the other hormonal systems didn't seem susceptible to fatigue necessarily. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and what kind of led you down the path to study what brought you here now?
Oh, absolutely. So, again, hormones are very impactful in the human body. And going on, I started doing a lot with adrenal fatigue. I've had my own issues that we could talk at some point around lipids and high cholesterol and things that started up with me when I was 19. Mm. And then my wife, Heidi, she was having issues with big fatigue. And so I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? I have an old cellular and molecular biology book here, my old A&P from years and years ago, opening them up. And I was like, something just doesn't fit. And I got to think, so we're a system, right? And our system is made up of organs. So our body's made up of systems of organs. Those are made up of tissues, and that's at the hormone level. Mm-hmm. But even below that, you can go down to the cellular level, and you can even go to the atomic level, molecular level, even below that. But at the cellular level, what I started looking at is what would make people feel fatigued. We talk about insulin resistance and the receptors not coming on. But why adrenal fatigue? And then I started thinking, well, what gives us energy? And one of my favorite words to say, mitochondria.
Yeah.
All of our energy is really made in that mitochondria. And if you remember way back in biology, it's something called ATP. We think of the Krebs cycle and the electron transport system. And one of the things I noticed my wife doing a lot is she was yawning quite a bit. Well, why do we yawn? A lot of times it's to bring in extra oxygen also. So if you think about it, the fatigue, if there's a mitochondrial dysfunction, if the density of the mitochondria are not there, so you have two kind of things that can happen, we don't produce as much energy. And so I started looking down that path. And then I was actually in a lecture, and I give a lot of credit to a mentor of mine, Dr. Brian Walsh. He said something in that lecture about what organs in your body really fatigue. And I was like, it was such an aha moment. It was like the electricity that connected all these light bulbs together. And after that, I really started looking. And if you look at this, if your cells in your body are all healthy, would you be healthy? Yeah, absolutely. The answer is yes. So really my practice is focused on a lot of cellular health, and more importantly, two parts of the cell, the mitochondria, so the ability to produce ATP and make energy that makes everything in your body work, and the endoplasmic reticulum, which is, we think a lot about protein synthesis and combination of protein, but if you go even further down into that smoothie R, that's where a lot of detoxification occurs. And so our body's really good at removing toxins, but if we get hampered in one way or another, illness, aging, something happens, then supporting the endoplasmic reticulum, which, by the way, in the cell, uses more ATP than any other part of the cell. So if that happens, if that gets hampered, toxins will slow down the mitochondria's ability to produce ATP. Well, if you reduce the ATP and the organelle in the cell that uses the most ATP won't have the energy to detoxify, and you see how that becomes very cyclic. So that's really where it went.
I love that. If you don't mind, I'm going to chop that up into little pieces, not in a bad way, but to help kind of wrap their head around that. Because what you're really talking about is going from a macro scale as a fitness professional, which is, let's make sure these muscles are working together as a unit and that we're doing the right number of sets and the right number of reps. You go from the macro scale of how somebody's body is moving, maybe even how many calories they're burning versus how many calories they're eating, that sort of thing. That's the macro scale. Then you go a little deeper and it's like, oh, how are the hormones working together? And maybe your cortisol is a little too high at the evening time when you should be falling asleep. And so you try to manage the next level, right? But then what you're talking about is having gone all the way down to the molecular biology level, like the cellular biology as it relates to molecular biology. And I remember I went to the University of Vanderbilt and I did my studies in pre-med, both psychology and chemistry. And I remember the hardest class I ever took, the hardest, bar none. Like, you want to fail, you want to make the worst grade of your whole life, go to this class. It was bioorganic chemistry in the graduate school. And bioorganic chemistry is you're doing chemical equations, but you're doing them with molecules that you have to spend 30 minutes to draw. And then you have to track one electron as it jumps from spot to end up over here. And then these two when you say mitochondria creating ATP that is going to be used by the endoplasmic reticulum, that is bioorganic chemistry. And I think one of the things that really messes with people's head is that when you and I are speaking about nutrition and exercise at the biomolecular level, they have a hard time translating that to the macro scale, where a trainer is really good at, hey, you're running on a treadmill, you burned 500 calories, great job. But we're going to go a little bit deeper than that. And I think this is important because there's a group of people for whom the status quo works really well. Like, maybe you have average genetic material and maybe your life on most scales could be pinned in an average way. But if you're not average, that doesn't mean you're not still biologically sound. And so when you get all the way down to the cell, you can start addressing some of the things that make you not average, but that the macro scale isn't going to address. So I'm really glad that you brought mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum up. Let's dive into that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When you say mitochondrial health, like in layman's terms, what does that even mean? Are mitochondria like their own little person inside and we have to make sure they're healthy? Is it the rate at which we're producing them versus the rate at which they're dying? Like when you say mitochondrial health, what would the average person might need to let sit in their brain there?
There's a couple of things to think about here. The first one is, let's start up and maybe work down a little bit. There's mitochondrial density. You've got several hundred mitochondria in a cell. Could have up to 2,400 mitochondria in a cell. Think about your heart. We don't want your heart ever to run out of energy, right?
Right.
If it runs out of energy, that's a bad thing.
Right.
So the mitochondrial density in your cardiac muscle is great, okay? Now, if you go all the way down to someone that's doesn't move a lot, they're very stationary, doesn't get around a lot, their mitochondrial density in just their average cell may be, a couple of hundred mitochondria to produce that. So being a fitness professional trainer, one of the things we like to do is increase the mitochondrial density of our clients. Because if you increase the mitochondrial density, you produce more energy. You produce more energy, you can lift more, run faster, run farther, jump higher. I saw a video of you push a car up a driveway.
Yeah.
We can do all of those things.
Right. I love that. Next time my neighbor's like, what are you doing? I'm going to be like, I'm crashing in on mitochondrial density. What are you doing?
It's awesome. So that's one way, we can increase health. The other thing you need to look at is the mitochondria. There's a membrane that goes around the mitochondria, very similar to the membrane that goes around all the cells in our body. That mitochondrial membrane is very susceptible to, and when I use the word toxin, I'm thinking about anything that's in the cell that shouldn't be there.
Right.
Whether it's old cellular matter that the body needs to remove out, or it's heavy metals, or it's, you name the thing that shouldn't be in a cell, and that I'm going to just generalize that as a toxin.
Right.
So it can impact the mitochondrial membrane. Well, that mitochondrial membrane, a lot of the energy production happens right there. So, if we want to get down and talk about different parts of the mitochondria, we can, but I don't think that's as important, just to think that membrane for the mitochondria to be healthy, because that's where energy production is really what's the most important part. So mitochondrial health is impacted by that. So just the strength of the membrane.
I love that. Let's sit on that for a second, because that, if people could just wrap their heads around how deep this goes from a nutrition perspective and how that impacts you in the long term, then I think they don't need to take anything else away from our conversation, to be frankly honest there. And I hope other good things come out of this. So listen to what Bruce is saying here. He's saying, if you want to feel energetic, if you want to be able to produce more energy, which would, in layman's terms, be an increase in metabolism. You might think of it that way, as having an increase in metabolism, increase in ability to push cars up driveways and jump over small toddlers in a single bound, right? But that also results in better body composition too, like less fat, more muscle, that sort of thing. If you want that, then when we're talking about all the way down to the cellular level, we're talking about mitochondrial density. That's the amount of mitochondria in each cell. And you can change that. Like you can change that through exercise, especially if you're not over-exercising. A good combination of exercise plus recovery intelligently can increase mitochondrial density. And then you have mitochondrial health. And this is the thing I'm so glad I get to talk to you about it, because you take mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, making ATP. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going way back in my mind to the last time I talked about mitochondria.
Okay.
Right? So if I remember right, the production of ATP happen on the membrane of the mitochondria, the electron transport chain. And it's a pretty wacky looking protein conglomerate. It's like a big giant turbine, actually. Electrons pass on top of the membrane to turn this turbine to synthesize ATP, which stores our energy. Now, to the people listening, if you haven't studied biology in a while, what I'm saying to you is the raindrops of energy producing molecules fall on top of the mitochondrial membrane. And the mitochondrial membrane does an amazing amount of work to create energy from that for the cell. If the membrane is compromised, so let's say toxins gather. Toxins just happen because of the metabolic machinery that produces, we say it's the powerhouse of the cell. Well, powerhouses produce smog, right? You got yeah. not really smog in the cell, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, these oxidative factors, if that collects, eventually what happens is the membrane starts to break down. It could kill the mitochondria. It could, then reduce the ATP of the cell altogether. It might gum up the system, so to speak, such that this delicate process doesn't result in ATP production. But one of the things that I'm really interested in is the idea of building that membrane well. And I was reminded of a study where they looked at the oxidative force of an omega-3 fatty acid versus the oxidative properties of an omega-6 fatty acid. And omega-6, we tend to think of those as like our corn-fed beef processed stuff, like high heat cooking, that sort of stuff that might elevate inflammatory response in the body. And then omega-3s, you can think of those as like your fresh caught salmons and your shrimp and all that good stuff. Well, there's not a lot of omega-3 in shrimp, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway,
yep, I'm with you.
Our body takes those fatty acids and uses them to create these membranes. And so when I think of mitochondrial health, what comes to my mind is this analogy of our body building itself out of the food that we're eating, and that the individual health of each one of our mitochondria really comes from some of the materials that we're providing our body to build those out of. So when you coach mitochondrial health, exercise obviously has something to do with mitochondrial density, right? Which kind of signals the cell to elevate the ability to produce energy. But when you talk about nutrition, what are some of the things that you're coaching to help people build good mitochondrial membranes?
So very similar structure in the cell membrane as in the mitochondrial membrane. We need those healthy fats for both places. And I love how you put all of that. When that membrane around the mitochondria starts losing its integrity, you can get electron loss as well, which hampers the ability to produce, ATP. There's a couple of things out there. I want to clarify a few things. So in the past 10 or 15 years, ish, we've really tried to cover up our standard American diet by talking to people about adding in a lot of omega-3s. And I'm with you, omega-3s are extremely, extremely important and necessary. They're very anti-inflammatory. The issue that's starting to come to the surface right now is people are becoming omega-3 dominant. So your cell membrane, your mitochondrial membrane, it also needs omega-6s and 9s combined into them. Now, to your point, you can get omega-6s and 9s from fried food that are probably rancid, and now you're using low quality, building material to build the cells, to build the mitochondrial membrane. Or you can look at things like more of your grass-fed beefs and things that are higher in omega-3s also, but better quality omega-6s and 9. So instead of the highly processed foods, to get those things that are less processed to help build those membranes. So you do still need some 6s and 9s.
I'm so glad you said that. Bruce is really nice, so he's not going to say this to you. I'm going to say it right to your face right now, really hardcore. You can't out-supplement your crap diet, all right? Like you can't load up on omega-3s and expect that to fix your mitochondria while you're also eating XYZ that's not helping it.
Right. That's such a good point. The reason why we call them supplements is because they are supplemental to something. The thing they're supplemental to, most people, the easy answer is nutrition, right? Because a lot of the stuff we're putting in are vitamins and minerals. But it's also supplemental to exercise and activity, because people take supplements to try to increase mitochondrial density or boost their hormones like testosterone. Well, you can do that with nutrition and activity. So it's to both of those things. But yeah, you can't out supplement poor eating habits. But back to adding in good healthy fats, which is basically the cornerstone for the membranes in our body, whether it's a mitochondrial membrane or it's the cellular membrane, which is obviously extremely important as well. I mean, you also have the nuclear membrane. So, I mean, this is necessary for quite a few things to boost cellular health. Now, the other thing that's very important that I know a lot of fitness professionals will talk about, to me, it is the most important thing you can put in your body. Well, the most important thing that I can help coach you to put in your body, the most important thing is air. And if you're not getting that, it's above my pay grade to help you with that. But I look at things as air, water, food. You can go a couple of minutes without air. You can go a few days without water, and you can go a few weeks without food. So getting in water and being properly hydrated is extremely important. Just about, and dare I say, every reaction, chemical reaction that happens in your body, creating ATP, that energy is one of those, happens in a water solution, or a water-based solution. So getting well hydrated will also support your mitochondrial health.
I just had a conversation with a client literally just before we got on here. She was like, everything's going well. I'm starting to feel stronger. I'm getting more energetic. She just started coaching with, I told her before we even started, look, in the first 4 weeks that we worked together, I don't want you to get on a scale. You're very weight motivated and all that stuff. I don't want you to get on a scale. I told her why too. I said, there are changes that happen in exercise but when you start an exercise program, you change your nutrition and stuff. There are changes that happen that are good, but you gain weight because of them. And so she got on a scale because, that's what you do when you say, don't eat the apple, and Eve eats the apple, and now we're all screwed. Thanks,
That's where it all started.
So she gets on the scale and she's like, you know what, everything's going in a good direction. My clothes are fitting better. Even my spouse said, you're looking great. I can tell you're losing weight in your face. Your arms are starting to look great. Like, that's great. She didn't change on the scale and she's a little discouraged. And I was like, all right, look. So she's like, does that mean we need to eat less? I really need to change this nutrition. Like, stop it. Stop what you're doing right now. First of all, 72%, plus or minus a percent or two, 72% of your body weight is water. How many calories is in water? She goes, well, 0. Like, yeah, 72% of what you're seeing on the scale has nothing to do with whether or not we've eaten too much or too little right now, right?
Right.
So that's a big deal, okay? Then when you first start exercising, and I know I'm on a soapbox here, but I think somebody needs to hear this, so I'm going to just keep talking for just a second. When we first start exercising, blood volume increases. You talked about the oxygen necessary for mitochondria to do their job. You have to increase your blood volume in order to get more oxygen to the cells. And some people can gain between 2 and 4 pounds of blood volume in the first month of training. If you also burn 2 to 4 pounds of fat at the same time, guess what? Scale doesn't change, but you're making progress, right?
Right.
And then also, you just said water in all of the body's reactions, almost all of them. You say, dare I say, it's like, yeah, there might be like 3 out of 70 million reactions that don't need water as a substrate or as a concentration mitigator. But the body's reactions happen with water, and people don't realize this. You can't gain muscle meaningfully in like a week or two, but you can have tissue that's dormant, meaning that it's dehydrated. There's not a lot of fluid in it because it's not doing much. You start exercising, and what happens? Well, the tissue fills with water because you're doing something with it. It's got a job to do now. And so you also are starting to activate deactivated tissue. So if you're listening to this and you're in the first 4 weeks of a training program and you're like, oh man, I haven't lost weight yet, I'm not doing a great job. It's like, hey, hold up. We got a lot of water moving around in here. Okay. Just be happy, stay hydrated, keep working on this. We're making investments in the future. So I had to say that because you're so right. At a molecular level, staying hydrated will change the health of your mitochondria and help your cells in a positive direction. Now, I personally, from a training perspective, I know that mitochondrial density increases in response to things like cardiovascular training, and also the high repetition, low weight, supersetting circuit style sort of training. What other stuff increases mitochondrial density that you're aware of?
Well, it really isn't just moving. When your body's is sitting still on the couch all the time, you're that couch potato. Your body's like, hey, I don't need to really do much. I don't need a lot of mitochondria. It's like a company that's just getting going. We only have a couple of handfuls of people working for the company, and then like Amazon, and then all of a sudden it boomed, and we need hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people to come in there. Well, that's the same thing. You start an exercise program, and your body's going, wait, I need to keep up with this energy demand. Well, let's see, what do we need? Let's go to HR and go get those mitochondria hired. And your body starts building those. Another fact is, your mitochondria has its own DNA, so it will replicate and build out. We think of the nucleus carrying the DNA, which is the genetics. Looking at you and me and the sound of our voice, that's all comes from there. But mitochondria will do too. So they will start to produce and continue to help our bodies do the Alex workout and be able to get through it, because the next time I see him, he's going to increase weights or increase the amount of repetitions I'm doing, or maybe he's going to shorten my rest time. So I need to be able to build that energy back up. And so that's really the best way. Now, you need the proper nutrition. We need the supplies. We always need the building supplies. And then you have the what is it? It's the senescent cells that are in your body. Basically, as we get older, these are the cells in your body that are dormant, that really aren't dividing. They're not working anymore. So if you think about it, like with your client, your body's starting to produce new cells that are being active, but you still got to get rid of all of this other inactive stuff in your body, because that's part of the weight you're going to lose too. It's not just from the fat. We have cellular matter in our body that we have to get rid of. Again, those are some of that toxin that's there. So cleaning out all of that is very important as well.
That takes time too. So like, not that this is the only example, but this is really easy for everybody to wrap their head around. So you flex your muscle, right? If I told Gabriel, show me your muscles, he would double arm bicep flex. He'd be like, look at my muscles. I've been eating my protein. He's getting smart now. He can tell you, I've been eating my protein. Anyway, so you think about your bicep muscle and you ask it to do some work, right? And we think, well, we're going to grow muscle. Like the tissue is going to increase, right? That's not necessarily the only way that goes down. You're also replacing the cells in that muscle with new cells that are better equipped to handle the next load, right? And part of growing muscle, for those who need to picture this, imagine you have a cell, and then there's fluid that surrounds the cell. In a muscle, that's called sarcoplasm. You've got like a fluid mixture. It's like jelly around the cell, and the sarcoplasm stores energy for the work that you're going to do. Well, if you turn over that sarcoplasm and it increases in density of nutrients and water and stuff, the muscle gets bigger, and then the cell in the center can actually do more work, right? Because it's got more what's resources to work with, right? And when people exercise, they don't think that way. They're like, oh, my body is as it is, and I'm just going to put muscle on top of that. Like, no. You're literally changing every cell of your body. Yeah. And what we're doing through exercise is telling your body, hey, in the next iteration, in the next cycle of yourself, what you were before isn't enough. You're going to have to increase mitochondria. You're going to have to get better at this whole oxygen exchange thing, because you're going to go through some things. That's what exercise is. It's a good stress that if you recover well to it, it actually allows you to become something a little bit better or different, or unlock parts of you that you didn't have before, right? So you bring up such a good point. People think I'm burning fat to lose weight. It's like, no, we're also clearing out a bunch of garbage that wasn't useful before.
Gosh, yes. Tons of it.
So well said. Thank you for that. So I don't want to switch gears super hard here, but one of the things you're also passionate about is digestive health. If you feel like there's something else we need to say about mitochondria here, I'd love to hear it from you. But I also want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what you're doing with digestive health and what that might have to do with the whole system. So where do you want to start there?
Well, I mean, we could talk about mitochondria for forever, right? We'll end up boring your audience on as much stuff we can talk about with mitochondrial and cellular health. Again, it all boils down to cellular health, and digestive health is really important for a couple of reasons. One, this is where you're bringing all of those raw materials into your body. You're really taking them through your digestive tract. Two, a big part of your immune system is, your digestive tract is protecting you against all these foreign invaders that come in. And quite frankly, there's a lot of it that actually just live in and on us. And then we have to look at all the neurological factors. Mostly the serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that's highly used by your brain. Most of that is produced in your gut. So we need that. And then obviously back around to all those raw materials to build new cells, to build all those organelles in that cells, to your digestive system is huge on removing toxins and waste out of your body. So there's a lot of it's really, if you think about an old castle and you had the big wall around it and the moat, it's the wall and the moat that it's either going to keep everything in and protect it, or it's going to keep stuff out and protect it. So it is that gateway.
Right. And it really facilitate that exchange for sure. So I think I need to have you on again sometime soon to I like talking to you, first of all, but second of all, like digestive health, it could be its own like series. We could be like 6 episodes of just like, let's talk about gut flora.
Oh, the microbiome. Oh my gosh.
Right. So one of the things, I don't know if you've read this before, I'm really into zombies, which
okay.
I don't know, it's a problem. But the idea, that you've got some parasite that takes over the host's brain and it's good for nothing and he tries to eat everybody and that proliferates through humanity. And that might be a problem. I don't know if that's something I need to go talk to a psychiatrist about. But in real life, there are actual zombies that it's a virus that can infect an ant's brain.
Mm-hmm.
Teaches the ant to go kill itself in a way that helps the virus proliferate, which is pretty fun. But it's funny, the more we learn from a research perspective, the more we learn about our gut microbiome, the crazier this sort of analogy becomes, because when we talk about the serotonin being produced by our gut bacteria, there are some gut bacteria that do a great job of producing the heck out of some serotonin, and there's some that don't do a very good job at all. But that ends up crossing the blood-brain barrier and helping us to feel more satiated. It helps us to feel less depressed. It could elevate our mood. Serotonin, if you're treating depression, you take a serotonin reuptake inhibitor that increases the serotonin in your brain. But it also can regulate hunger cues. Like when you have low serotonin, we talk about this for the biological basis of dad bod. Testosterone goes down, serotonin goes down. What's one of the fastest ways to fix that? Eat chocolate cake. Like nothing gives you a serotonin boost like chocolate cake, right? Or maybe alcohol. But so actually alcohol affects more dopamine than serotonin. But the point is, it's like in our gut, we have colonies that have come to live there based on the food that we've been feeding them and the nutrients we have or have not been feeding them, that are actually influencing us at the level of the brain. Not quite like a crazy ant zombie virus telling us to go kill ourselves in an advantageous way, but that, people will say, I have sugar cravings all the time. How do I get rid of my sweet things?
Exactly.
I would rather say, stop talking about your teeth. Stop saying you have a sweet tooth, okay? Because chances are it's much more realistic to say, I've got sweet bacteria in my gut that are telling me I need to eat some sugar right now. And that's way more accurate. It has nothing to do with your tooth. In fact, your tooth's probably fallen out because of the sweets you're eating, all right? Stop that. But the bacteria, on the other hand, they can communicate, and don't go freak out and sleep weird and have weird dreams on me here. Like, small intestine's not like an alien telling you do, but it can influence things like cravings. And the more we research it, we see things like circadian rhythm is influenced. We see things like athletic potential is influenced. We see things like immune response is influenced. And when you bring that up, man, I just can't even not talk about it. What is some of the things that you're coaching people on with regard to their digestive health? And you can, obviously you can say something about what I just said. I just said a lot. Zombies and serotonin.
Well, so, funny thing, I tell people I don't have a sweet tooth. I have 28 of them. But you're not far off when you're saying that zombie controlling them. So, and you make a great point with the sugar cravings. So there's a yeast called Candida, and a Candida overgrowth, in your gut. It will signal, and I've seen time and time again clearing and rebuilding the microbiome in the gut. I see people sugar cravings. I am guilty a while ago coming back. So that is very true. They're finding more and more that there is a tighter relationship with our microbiome and ourselves than they ever thought. Couple of things. So when we talk about the microbiome, most people think of the gut, but our microbiome is on our skin. It's in our nasal passage, our mouth, our lungs. They're even finding certain bacteria in breast tissue. There was a study up there that I'd have to find for you, but it's the absence of a specific type of bacteria increases the chance of a woman getting breast cancer.
Wow.
So they're looking at the enzymes that are being produced by the bacteria, helping suppress those cells from
getting out of control. Yeah.
Dividing. Yeah. And so that's huge what they're finding, with that. So it's a very interesting field of study because, when I talk to people about their microbiome, so there's trillions of cells in our body that make us up, and we're reproducing millions of those every day. And I think I heard you say on one of your podcasts previously that in 3 to 7 years, at least those are the numbers I have, 3 to 7 years, you're a whole new you. All the cells in your body will be replaced with new cells. And as we age, that slows down. Well, there's trillions and trillions and trillions. So there's more microbiome in and on and around us than there are cells of our own body. So they're very influential in our thoughts. So if we talk about mood, depression, ADHD, all of these other types of diagnoses that are out there, very influential there. Digestive health, obviously, what's going on. Look, if you eat something and your microbiome in your gut doesn't like it, it's going to pass through pretty quick. And, that's what happens. And they're very good. They help us clear stuff out. They break things down and help us remove those toxins away from our body. Now, they can also cause other issues. So there's other things like that you may have heard of, something called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, where our small intestines don't contain the amount of bacteria that our large intestine or our colon does. So through certain therapies that you can go through if you're sick all the time or other infections, the bacteria are very smart. They will move around and migrate to where they can find a place. So as good as they are for us, if they're in the wrong places, they can be bad. So that's where I start with my clients. Again, I always look, my practice is based on cellular health, and it's a nutrition-based practice. So I start there with everyone. And it's because if you're eating high-quality foods, good, healthy, getting all your nutrients, your proteins, your fats, your carbohydrates, your vitamins and minerals, and water, if you're getting good high-quality stuff, you're going to build good high-quality cells, and that's going to help. Well, it's the same thing in your digestive tract. If you're not feeding the bad bugs and you're feeding good stuff, you're getting good fiber in for the good ones. And again, somebody with SIBO, it's going to be a different story. You're not going to want, certain things. So it does change depending upon what's going on. But just for your normal, healthy, one of your clients that just wants to lose weight or get faster or stronger, giving them what they need really helps. Adding the fiber in which we use to slow down, glucose absorption, also feeds those bacteria and helps those good ones stay healthy. So that 7 servings of vegetables you mentioned, that's extremely important because that's where we get that from.
I'm reminded while you're talking of the old Native American proverb where the man is talking to the boy, the young Apache warrior or whatever, and he says, there are 2 wolves inside of you. One is the treacherous evil. It can't love. It's malevolent, and he's like, and then he looks at him kind of funny. Okay, there's an evil wolf inside of me. Got it. And he's like, and then there's the good wolf inside of you. It makes you courageous and brave and strong and loving and intelligent and whatnot. And he said, there's always a battle raging between the 2 of them. And the young warrior says, which one's going to win? And he said, the one you feed. And I always think of that with regard to our bacterial colonies is, we joked earlier, next time I'm pushing my car up the driveway and my neighbor looks at me funny and be like, I'm working on mitochondrial density here, bud. I could almost say the same thing next time I'm at a party and I'm offered a piece of cake and I'm like, no, I'm good. And they're like, what, are you on a diet or something? I'm like, hey man, I'm just managing my microbiome. All right.
Yes.
I just need to make sure and feed the good wolf and not the bad stuff here. So we've covered a bunch of topics, and I'm going to have you back on so we can get into each one of them a little more deeply and whatnot. But if you can believe it, we've already been at it for an hour. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Time flies when you're having fun. So I want to give you an opportunity here to have the last word, because we've talked about mitochondrial health. We've talked about mitochondrial density. We even got to a point where we got to talk about omega-3, 6, and 9 fatty acid concentrations across the cell membrane and stuff. So this has been good and nerdy, and I know valuable for the clients. But if they don't take away anything else from you today, Bruce, what do you hope people hear from you, your practice, your experience, and what you're doing with people?
A couple of things just real quick. And I know you've done a lot with people trying to change their body compositions, whether it's weight loss or getting their abs and all that. One thing I really stand by and have for many years is nobody looks good in a pine box. Meaning you lose all that weight, but you're not healthy on the inside. If you don't have if your cells aren't healthy, the only people you're helping are the people that are carrying you, to that big long car, and that's not fun. So do the things that you can do to help build and regenerate those healthy cells, whether it's eating good high quality nutrients, drinking plenty of water, that rule of thumb, half your body weight in ounces of water, good quality proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Make sure that you supplement where it's needed. I too have heard you say you're a minimalist. I've moved that way myself, where you need it to just fill in the gaps. Get good sleep, good stress management, recover from your workouts well. Listen to what Alex has to say, but just know that it's always a journey, and it's usually not a very fast one. To say it's more of a marathon than a sprint is true. What I like to tell my clients, it's like swinging a pendulum. You've been over here for a long time, standard American diet, sedentary, what have you. You want to be here. To do that, you're going to have to swing all the way over, change your habits for a little while, and then eventually come down here. And then you play in this, realm at the bottom, that 10% on either side, of where you want to be, just to stay there. It becomes a practice, and 2 things: hire a professional like Alex, maybe myself, that can help guide you. That's a good guide. And then the second thing that's really important is get that support system around you, the people that are going to uplift you. Remove the naysayers out. They're not part of your tribe. They're not in your arena. So that's what I would say for every one of you people listening.
Good advice on that front. If we could just put that in written form and that became a nice little pamphlet, then I think a lot of people would see positive progress in themselves. I appreciate you being on, man, and I appreciate your mind and your heart for helping people to get more healthy so that when we do end up in a pine box, we lived a nice, long, high quality life. And it wasn't like, well, I died 6% body fat, so that counts for something. So thanks for your background, and keep fighting the good fight, brother.
Well, thanks for having me on, Alex. I really appreciate you.
You got it. And to the listeners, you guys kick butt, take names. The free practical advice and conversations here remain unbought and unbiased thanks to the support of listeners just like you. For more information on how you can become a part of the inner circle of Defining Dad Bod, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle.